guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. If you are new, welcome to the family. My name is Dina. Today we are talking about tarot and how I personally learned how to read the tarot. I was debating on whether or not to make this video just because I'm not like some crazy experienced tarot reader that's been reading for like 10 years, but at the same time, I feel like I've gained like a certain amount of knowledge of how to learn the tarot in a way that is not super complicated and difficult. And I definitely figured out a way to learn the tarot that worked for me personally that might actually work for other beginners as well. So I thought I'd share that information. I just want to start off with saying that when I first thought about learning the tarot, I was told by many people that like, oh, there's a lot to learn. There's just so many. There's 78 cards. You'll spend your entire life learning the tarot. Almost in a way that was kind of intimidating. Like I was super excited to learn it. It's like, oh, but you'll spend your whole life learning the tarot. I'm like, okay, like, can I just start now though? Like, why are you telling me this in a way that's almost like kind of discouraging? Okay, sure, I'll play with the tarot, I'll learn the tarot my entire life, I'm cool with that, but like, why not get started now? So if someone tells you that or makes you feel like it's just too much to grasp or there's just too much information and it'll be like an entire lifetime before you even get to use the tarot or read with the tarot, like, don't believe that. Don't let that discourage you, because I think that's part of the excitement. And you don't have to wait until you are a tarot pro to start reading for yourself, or even for like friends or family, just to like get practice, because that's one of the things that's going to really help you. Now for me, I found that one of the best ways to start learning the tarot was to break it down into smaller pieces. So what I personally did is I started with the suits, really understanding the suits, the kind of correspondences, the symbolization that goes along with that. If you are new to tarot, or you may already know this, but the 4 suits in the tarot are the cups, the wands, the pentacles, and the swords. For most people, the cups are connected to the water element, the pentacles are connected to the earth element, the swords to the air element, and the wands to the fire element. Now some people swap the wands and the swords. Some people see swords as fire and wands as air. I personally don't resonate with this, but you know, believe whatever you want to believe. Now the first thing I started doing when I was learning the tarot, is I started creating little connections. Now this is just a technique that works for me personally with studying, and I found it helped me, you know, ace my tests all throughout university when I went to school for psychology. I found the more connections, the more stories and things that I made up in my brain, or even said out loud, because when you say things out loud you remember it better, the more I remember it. And that's just how the brain works. The more neural pathways you create, the more you remember things. So for example, what I would do is like, to remember that cups are the water element, I'm like, well, cups can hold water and you can drink water out of cups. And then I'm like, okay, pentacles. I pictured pentacles being drawn into the earth, into the ground for like a ceremony or something. Or they also look like coins, and coins, money, physical possessions, things like that are associated with the earth element. So like I created those connections. And then also for wands, the way I thought of it, because wands is the element of fire, I'm like, oh, when you wave a wand, like magic comes out that looks like fire. And I had that image of that red, you know, light coming out of the wand, like in Harry Potter, for example. And that's how I remembered, you know, wands are fire. And then swords, you like swing them through the air. And then, you know, swords, the air energy is associated with thoughts and intellect and stuff. I thought of airhead, although you're not an airhead if you're intellectual, but like, you know what I mean? Like airhead, intellect, that like just little things like that. Once you create little connections to things, that's how you remember things so much better. And you can do this with your color correspondences. You can do this with other symbolic meanings, other things that you find in the cards. I found this was personally really, really helpful. So there's definitely a memorization aspect of learning the tarot, because there's 78 cards. Each card has its own, you know, meaning that was intended by the artwork. And the best way to like really learn each meaning, I would say, is to go back to the basics and learn from the Rider-Waite tarot, Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, because it's got the original imagery, and the original imagery actually is really in depth with how much story it tells, whereas a lot of the newer decks, not all of them, but a lot of them are more abstract, so they're a lot harder to learn off of. And that's not to say you can't learn off of those ones, but it is, I would say it is easier to learn from the original Rider-Waite-Smith wordsmith and then move on to those other decks after. Now I'll kind of get into some other techniques there in a second, but what I wanted to talk about is, although there is a memorization aspect of learning the cards, you don't want that to discourage you from reading with them and using them, because it's not all intellect. And like when you use the tarot, you don't want to just overthink it. You don't want to just read the card like, this is what I was told, this card means this card means that. Like obviously there is going to be a little bit of that background as you learn the tarot, but at the same time you want your intuition to come through. So for example, if a card has this original meaning, but you're getting something a little bit different from that, like something else is coming to you, trust your intuition and don't be afraid to take on that meaning of the card. Maybe the card's not going to always mean what you think it's going to mean based on what you learn, but don't ignore your intuition. Questions to ask yourself, you know, when you're reading it, like, how does this card make me feel? What does this artwork in particular tell me? Because I have to say, for example, maybe your Queen of Cups in one deck says something a lot different to you than your Queen of Cups in another deck. And this is another thing I like about having multiple tarot decks is, you know, you might have heard people say there's 78 cards, they're all the same meaning. Why would you need multiple tarot decks? Until you are a tarot person and you like get deep into tarot and you really love tarot, then you acknowledge and you understand that, like, okay, you're gonna have multiple tarot decks because each tarot deck brings a different tone, brings a slightly different meaning, a different mood. Like you get different sensations, different feelings, different messages from different decks. Now if you own a more modern deck, something that's maybe a little bit more abstract, ones that come to mind are the Wild Unknown Tarot. This was actually the first tarot deck I bought, and it was kind of a mistake because it was hard to learn off of. I eventually got the Rider-Waite Tarot as well. I love the Wild Unknown Tarot. I read with it a lot now, but it is a hard deck to learn off of. There's so many different other ones that you can get that are definitely a lot more abstract and maybe don't tell as much story as the Rider-Waite does in a traditional way. But the more you learn tarot, the more you'll kind of pick out those stories from it as well. In the beginning, what I did, and this is just a technique that I kind of came up with on my own, and I know other people use it too, so I can't really say it's necessarily mine, but it's also not something that I got from anybody else. What I started doing is I started laying out the cards side by side, and I go through every single card in the deck to compare, you know, the original to the more abstract version. If you don't have the like original Rider-Waite Tarot, you can even use a book. You can go online. I know there's websites that show you like the cards, I think, for like the Rider-Waite if you just want to look at them. You can even find, yeah, a website where you can compare that to the deck that you have if you don't have the extra money. I have to say, if you want something that's really, really close to the Rider-Waite Tarot and you want to learn off of that, but you're not a big fan of the artwork, I highly recommend the Modern Witch Tarot. I have a video on the Modern Witch Tarot that talks about the deck and goes into great detail about it, and I show you like most of the cards. So if you're interested in that, then I'll make sure to link that video below for you guys. But that is a really, really good deck that basically has all the same or very similar images to the Rider-Waite, but it's a lot more modern. It's a lot more inclusive of different skin tones, body shapes, sexuality. Obviously, the original is where all decks kind of stemmed from, but at the same time, the original just has so many details to it. It's so rich in storytelling, and that is a big aspect of tarot too, is you kind of want to learn to tell a story in a way. And at first, you're definitely going to find that you're kind of just picking out each card individually, like, okay, this card means this card means this, and this card means that, and that's completely fine. Then you create a story. So you don't want to just look at the cards individually, but you want to look at the cards collectively. What story do they tell together? What does this card mean when it's next to this card? That is something obviously that comes with practice. Another thing I find very helpful is if you're someone who's already into oracle cards, I find using oracle cards and tarot together is actually a really helpful technique. I often like to do my tarot reading first and see what I get with that, and then I'll incorporate some oracle cards, usually just a deck that I feel drawn to in that moment. I'm like, okay, I feel like I need a card from this or a couple cards from this, and then I'll pull those, and oftentimes the message in the oracle card will actually really help to like wrap up and like confirm or sum up a message that you've got from your tarot. And oftentimes you'll pull a card that kind of like really connects to another card, and I'll kind of like like strategically place things in a way that like I'm like, okay, like this goes with this and this goes with that. I find like moving cards around too as you read is very helpful. I feel like I'm throwing out facts randomly and I'm kind of not even going in the order of my notebook at this point, but ideas are coming and I feel like I need to get them out. I find being very tactile with it, like don't just put them down and just stare at them. Like hold the card, get closer to the card, move them around if you want. If you feel like this card really connects with this card and these two go together and these tell a story and you're kind of creating a story, don't be afraid to get tactile and move things around for you, because I find this really helps to connect with the cards. So I'm interrupting this video for a second because I was working on some B-roll and then I realized that I forgot to mention 2 really helpful techniques to learn the tarot, and that helped me, and I'm like, I totally forgot to mention these in my video. I forgot to write it down, so I just want to give them to you now. So one of them is I actually often will do readings for myself out loud, and this may, you know, not be an option if someone wants to do tarot more privately. Maybe you don't want people to hear you in the house, but if you're home alone or you have the space, then actually saying your reading out loud is very helpful. I find often it's easier than trying to interpret the cards silently in your mind, because sometimes you get stuck in your head, but sometimes if you say words out loud, things just flow better. So what I often do is I'll actually record myself, whether it is a video on my phone or sometimes, you know, like I don't know about Android, but I have an iPhone and there's a voice memo, so you can actually record your voice if you don't want to use your video. Not only does things flow better and I feel like I tune into my intuition better that way, but also it's really cool to look back on your readings afterwards and listen to it, because oftentimes when you're kind of in reading zone, it just kind of all comes in so fast, and then minutes later after you do your reading, you just don't even remember like half of the things that you said. But if you record it in your phone, you can go back and watch it or listen to it later on. But it's just another cool technique that I find helps me a lot. My other technique is for practicing for other people, but if you're not comfortable enough to do it for other people yet, or you feel very shy, you know, reading tarot for your friends, then what I actually do is I read for people I don't know, usually like famous people, whether it is a celebrity or like a YouTuber, a big YouTuber or something. What I'll actually do is just hang out in my room and I just do a reading for them. And you can do this the same way. You could also record it on your phone or a camera if you wanted to, so you can go back and like look at it later. But like just talk out loud and pretend you are doing a reading for that person. Like it's for your own private practice and learning experience. So like obviously as long as you're not posting it, then it's not really, I wouldn't say it's bad for the privacy. Like if you were to post it, then that's maybe not quite ethically right because the person didn't ask for a reading. But if you're just doing it like in your bedroom and you're not sharing it with anybody, you're just purely doing the reading just to practice on somebody, I think that's fine. But it is definitely a very different energy when you read for someone you don't know versus when you read for someone you do know very well, which is usually you know yourself pretty well. So I would definitely highly recommend trying that if you haven't tried that one already. I want to talk about the court cards, because the court cards are usually one of the most, I would say, like difficult to learn. I think a lot of people have difficulty with them because a lot of the time the court cards represent people. I don't know, it's harder to figure out, I guess, people in your life versus abstract feelings and experiences and things like that. What I did, and I found that this is what really helped me the most because I was getting so stuck on the court cards, is I tried to first get out of my head, because when you really think hard about it, like what person is this, then you get stuck. So I found I started to trust my intuition. I started to look at more than just the person. So don't just get hung up on the fact that it's a king or a queen or a knight or a page or mother, father, daughter, son, if it's like the Wild Unknown Tarot or some other deck, because some decks change it up. But like don't get hung up on that part. Like also look at, you know, what suit is it? What imagery do you see in the card? Like each card is going to have different type of imagery. Also, don't just think of the court cards as people in your life. They could be characteristics of people. They could be characteristics of you. Maybe there's something that you've been embodying lately. Maybe there's something that you need to embody more in order to achieve such and such goal. Maybe there's something else. Maybe you got something completely different from your intuition, but it's important to trust that because your intuition tells you things for a reason. Certain ideas come to you for a reason. Obviously, one of the really important tips I want to give to you is to practice. You're not going to learn the tarot by just studying the tarot, by just reading the books and not actually reading the cards. And it's going to be intimidating at first because you're going to be like, I don't know where to start. But even if you're just doing a 1-card pull or 3-card pull at first, those are a really good way to just start off. Also, I want to suggest, I think that being part part of a community helps too, because you learn from other people. I personally have been part of a tarot community slash course for probably about close to a year now. I have learned some other techniques and stuff, which I didn't talk about in this video just because, I mean, that's their course. I'm not going to take elements of the course and talk about it in here, but we've done a lot of different meditation type exercises. So meditation is very helpful, but there are a lot of like courses that will teach you different embodiment and meditation exercises that really help to get you into the tarot and really help to see it in a different perspective. So that is what I've learned from my course. Plus we get to like read for each other every now and then. And it's just really cool to be part of a community, like especially if you're someone who's maybe the only person in your town or community, which probably isn't very likely. There's probably someone else that is using tarot, but maybe you don't know anybody that's using tarot. Maybe none of your family or your friends use tarot. Maybe you don't know who to talk to. There's a lot of different communities online that you can become a part of. So anyways, guys, at the end of the day, tarot is your experience. It's your personal journey. Don't feel pressured to learn it all at once because everyone's always continuously learning. I hope this helped you in some way. I hope you guys gained some valuable tips or information. I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did like it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more witchy type videos, lifestyle, self-help. That's the kind of stuff I do. Sometimes I'll do something else random. Like you guys know I have birds and sometimes I do bird videos or whatever it may be. So let me know if you guys want to see more tarot videos. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great day and thank you so much for watching. I'll end this video here because now I'm just rambling. But I'll talk to you guys later. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.